My birthday card read, "To the biggest mistake we ever made." Mom declared, finally being honest about our disappointment. Dad roared, 28 years of wasted investment. Sister mocked, some people just shouldn't exist. I'd been their secret benefactor for 6 years, funding every luxury they took for granted. That night, I froze every account and left one final message in the family group chat they'll never forget. The morning of my 28th birthday started like any other. I woke up in my modest studio apartment in Chicago, made coffee in the same chip mug I'd used for 3 years, and checked my phone for the usual silence from my family. Not that I expected anything different anymore. My name is Claire, and for the past 6 years, I've been living what most people would call a double life. On the surface, I was the family disappointment, the daughter who dropped out of law school, who worked dead-end jobs, who never got married or gave them grandchildren. What they didn't know was that I'd built a tech consulting company from the ground up, generating more money in a month than my father made in a year at his corporate job. The irony wasn't lost on me that while they constantly berated me for my failures, I was secretly funding their entire lifestyle. Every luxury vacation my parents took, every designer handbag my mother carried, every lease payment on my father's used BMW, every semester of my sister Lily's graduate school, all of it came from carefully orchestrated supplemental payments that I arranged through my business connections and legitimate consulting arrangements. I told myself I did it out of love. That maybe if their lives were comfortable enough, they'd eventually see past their disappointment and remember that I was their daughter too. I was wrong. The birthday card arrived by mail that afternoon, addressed in my mother's pristine handwriting. Marianne Russo had always prided herself on her penmanship, claiming it reflected a person's character. The envelope was expensive, thick cream cardstock that probably cost more per sheet than most people spend on greeting cards. I should have known something was wrong when I saw it was from the Russo family rather than individual signatures. I opened it while sitting at my Kit Becker table, expecting the usual lukewarm birthday wishes and subtle digs about my life choices. Instead, I found something that would change everything. The card's cover featured an elegant floral design with gold embossing. Inside, in my mother's careful script, were the words that would haunt me, "To the biggest mistake we ever made." Below that, in different handwriting, were individual messages from each family member. Mom, finally being honest about our disappointment. 28 years and still waiting for you to amount to something. Maybe it's time to accept that some children are just born defective. Dad, 28 years of wasted investment. Every dollar we spent raising you could have gone to Lily instead. At least she had the decency to make us proud. Lily, some people just shouldn't exist. The world would be better if you'd never been born. Do everyone a favor and disappear already. I read it 3 times before the words fully sank in. Then I set the card down with trembling hands and stared at it for what felt like hours. This wasn't a moment of anger or frustration that they'd later regret. This was a deliberate, coordinated attack. They'd planned this. Discussed it. Decided together that their daughter, their own flesh and blood, deserved to be told she was a mistake who shouldn't exist. The worst part wasn't even the cruelty of the words. It was the timing. They'd sent this to arrive on my birthday, the one day of the year that was supposed to be about celebrating my existence. Instead, they'd chosen it as the perfect moment to tell me I shouldn't exist at all. I called my best friend Natalie, my hands still shaking as I dialed. "Claire? You sound upset. What's wrong?" "They sent me a birthday card," I managed to say. "Okay. That's good, right? I thought they usually forgot." "No, Jess. You don't understand. They told me I was the biggest mistake they ever made. That I shouldn't exist." There was silence on the other end. Natalie had been my friend since college and knew better than anyone how complicated my relationship with my family was. She'd witnessed years of casual cruelty disguised as tough love and honest feedback. "Claire, tell me you're joking." I wish I was. I read her the entire card, word for word. "Those monsters," Natalie whispered. "Claire, no parent should ever say that to their child. Ever. I don't care how disappointed they are. The thing is, Jess, they have no idea who I really am. They think I'm this failure, but I've been supporting them for years. Everything they have, everything they're proud of, I paid for it." I told her everything. About TechFlow Solutions, the consulting company I'd built that now had contracts with Fortune 500 companies. About the anonymous payments I'd been making to supplement my father's salary so he could afford his lifestyle. About the scholarships I'd created for Lily's education. About the mysterious bonuses my mother received that allowed her to shop at the expensive boutiques she loved. "You've been giving them money this whole time?" Natalie's voice was incredulous. 6 years, Jess. 6 years of making sure they could live the life they wanted while they treated me like garbage. "Claire, you have to stop. This is insane. They're abusing you financially and emotionally." "I know. I think I'm done." That night, I sat in my home office, a corner of my studio apartment that contained 3 monitors and enough computing power to run a small country, and began documenting everything. Every transaction, every payment, every carefully orchestrated windfall that had made their lives possible. My father, Gregory Russo, worked as a mid-level manager at an insurance company. His salary was $75,000 a year. Yet somehow, he drove a used BMW worth $35,000, lived in a house with a $2,100 monthly mortgage, and took vacations that cost more than most people's annual salaries. The math didn't add up, and it never had. I'd been supplementing his income through a system I developed using my legitimate business network. TechFlow Solutions had contracts with several companies in his industry. Through these business relationships, I'd arranged for legitimate consulting opportunities and market research projects that paid him an additional $2,500 to $3,500 monthly. Gregory received these payments as genuine freelance work, which he completed competently, though he never realized the opportunities came through my connections. My mother, Marianne, worked part-time at a high-end boutique but somehow maintained a lifestyle that required significantly more income. Her investment returns and contest winnings were actually returns from investment accounts I'd funded and managed in her name, generating approximately $2,000 monthly in legitimate returns from my initial capital investments. Lily was pursuing a PhD in psychology at an expensive private university. Her research assistantship that covered 80% of her tuition was real. I'd funded a research program at her university and recommended her for the position based on her genuine qualifications. Her living expenses were covered by additional research work that I'd arranged through academic connections. In total, I'd been providing them with roughly $85,000 annually in additional income they thought came from legitimate sources. Over 6 years, that was $510,000 of my money that had funded their comfortable lifestyle while they treated me like a disappointment. I spent the next several hours creating a comprehensive report detailing every payment, every account, every system I'd put in place to support them. Screenshots, bank records, corporate documents, everything they'd need to understand exactly how their lives had been subsidized by the daughter they considered worthless. At 2 a.m., I began the process of dismantling everything I'd built for them. First, I contacted the companies providing the consulting work to my father. As TechFlow Solutions owner and the business connection that had facilitated these arrangements, I informed them that the projects would be concluding. Gregory's next consulting payment, scheduled for the following week, would be his last. Next, I liquidated the investment accounts that had been generating my mother's monthly returns. Since the initial capital was mine and the accounts were structured as gifts I'd funded, I had the legal right to withdraw my money. Her next monthly return would be significantly smaller, basically nothing. The research assistantship funding Lily's education was more complex, but since I was the private donor funding the research program, I could redirect the funding elsewhere. I gave them 60 days notice, enough time to find alternative funding sources while fulfilling my legal obligations to the university. I also canceled several upcoming arrangements, my father's BMW lease payment assistance, my mother's boutique employee discount program that I've been funding, and a family vacation to Hawaii that was supposed to be funded by my mother's investment returns. But I didn't stop there. I had 6 years of anger and hurt to work through, and I was just getting started. I created a detailed financial analysis showing exactly how much their lifestyle exceeded their actual income. I calculated the precise moment when their bills would start exceeding their ability to pay. I projected the timeline of their financial collapse, 30 days until they missed their first payments, 60 days until creditors started calling, 90 days until they'd face serious consequences. Then I did something that felt both vindictive and necessary. I prepared a comprehensive dossier for each of them. For my father, I documented every business lunch he'd bragged about that was actually paid for with my money. Every golf membership, every expensive bottle of wine he'd served at dinner parties, every upgrade he'd made to the house, all funded by the daughter he considered a wasted investment. For my mother, I cataloged every designer purchase, every spa day, every luxury that had made her feel superior to her unsuccessful daughter. The pearl necklace she'd worn to my cousin's wedding while introducing me as Claire, she's trying to find herself. The car she'd bought to keep up appearances in the neighborhood. The elaborate landscaping that had cost more than most people's annual salary. For Lily, I detailed every advantage she'd had that she'd attributed to her own merit. The education she thought she'd earned through superior intelligence. The study abroad program she believed she'd been selected for based on academic excellence. The conference presentations that had only been possible because of my financial support. I wanted them to understand not just that their money was disappearing, but that their entire sense of superiority had been built on my generosity from the person they'd told shouldn't exist. At 4 a.m., I began crafting the message that would end our relationship forever. I opened our family group chat, Russo Family Updates, and began typing. This was where they shared photos from vacations I'd paid for, celebrated achievements made possible by my money, and occasionally included me in conversations when they needed something. The message I composed was long, detailed, and devastating. Hi everyone, I hope you all enjoyed sending me that birthday card. It was clarifying in ways you probably didn't intend. Since you decided to be honest about your feelings, I thought I'd return the favor and be honest about a few things too. For the past 6 years, I've been your secret benefactor. Every luxury you've enjoyed, every financial blessing you've received, every unexpected bonus and windfall, it all came from me. Dad, your annual income is $75,000. Yet you live like you make $115,000. Ever wonder where that extra money came from? Those consulting opportunities through Richardson and Associates and Palmer Industries? I arranged those through my business connections. Every project you worked on was legitimate, but the opportunities came from my professional network. Mom, your investment returns? All funded with my initial capital investments. The $2,000 monthly that's allowed you to maintain your lifestyle on a part-time boutique salary? Returns from accounts I funded with my money. Lily, your research assistantship covering 80% of your PhD program? I funded that research program at your university and made sure you were considered for the position. Your additional research work, your conference travel budget? All arranged through my academic connections. Over 6 years, I've given you $510,000 of my own money. That's more than most people make in a decade, freely given to a family that considers me worthless. I did this because I loved you. Because I hoped that if your lives were comfortable, you might eventually love me back. I thought maybe if I proved my worth through providing for you, you'd see me as valuable. But your birthday card made it clear that no amount of money could ever make you value me. You've decided I'm a mistake who shouldn't exist. So I'm granting your wish. As of today, I no longer exist in your lives. Dad, your next consulting project won't be coming. I've ended my business relationships that facilitated those opportunities. Mom, your investment account returns were based on my capital, which I've withdrawn. Lily, you have 60 days to find alternative funding for your research position. Your BMW payment is due next week, Dad. I won't be covering it anymore. Mom, your country club membership renewal is coming up, that's all you now. Lily, your thesis research trip to Europe next month? You'll need to find your own funding. I've attached detailed financial records showing exactly how much I've given each of you over the years. I've also included projections showing when your bills will exceed your actual income and what that timeline looks like. You called me the biggest mistake you ever made. But the biggest mistake was mine, thinking that family meant something to people who are incapable of love. You'll never hear from me again. Don't contact me, don't come to my apartment, don't involve extended family members as intermediaries. I'm changing my phone number and moving somewhere you'll never find me. Since you wished I'd disappear, congratulations, you got your wish. But I'm taking my money with me. By the way, the business you all assumed I was failing at? TechFlow Solutions has contracts with major corporations including regional offices of Apple, Microsoft, and Google. I'm worth more than all of you combined ever will be. The dead-end job daughter you're ashamed of built $1 million company. I hope the money was worth losing a daughter over. Because that's exactly what you chose. Goodbye forever, Claire. P.S. Mom, that pearl necklace you love so much? The one you wore to shame me at family events? I bought it. The car Dad drives to impress his coworkers? I paid for it. Lily, the laptop you're using to read this message? I purchased it through your electronic stipend. Everything you've used to feel superior to me, everything you've pointed to as evidence of your success while calling me a failure, it was all bought with my money. You spent years looking down on me while living off my generosity. I hope it was worth it. I attached 47 pages of financial documentation. Bank statements, corporate records, transfer histories, account summaries, everything they'd need to understand the scope of what they were losing. Then I hit send. I watched the read receipts appear immediately. First Lily, then Mom, then Dad. I could imagine them reading it, the realization dawning, the panic setting in. My phone started ringing within minutes. First Lily, then Mom, then Dad in rapid succession. I declined every call and turned off my phone. I spent the next hour packing everything I owned into 2 suitcases and a laptop bag. I'd already found a furnished apartment across town and put down a deposit. By morning, I'd be gone from the address they knew. The next few days were a whirlwind of logistics. I changed my phone number, updated my business addresses, and informed my clients that I was relocating. I hired a moving company to retrieve my furniture and belongings after I left, with instructions to donate anything that couldn't fit in my new place. Natalie helped me coordinate everything, serving as my intermediary for practical matters while I avoided any contact with my family. They've been calling me non-stop, she reported on day 3. Your mom is hysterical. She keeps saying there's been some mistake, that you couldn't possibly have been giving them money because you're unsuccessful. What about Dad? He's apparently been calling his company's HR department trying to figure out why his bonuses stopped. He doesn't seem to understand that the companies were never actually paying him, they were paying him on your behalf. And Lily? She's panicking about her dissertation funding. Apparently she'd planned her entire research timeline around having that money available. I felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction that they were finally experiencing consequences for their cruelty. Sadness that it had come to this at all. A week after I sent the message, Natalie brought me something that changed my perspective entirely. "Your mom gave me this to give to you," she said, handing me a sealed envelope. "She's been sitting outside your old apartment building for 3 days." Inside was a handwritten letter from my mother. "Claire, I know you said not to contact you, but I had to try. We're desperate and confused and scared. We never knew you had money. We thought you were struggling, that you were ashamed of your failures, that you were avoiding us because you were embarrassed. The birthday card was wrong. It was cruel and stupid and we regret it. We were frustrated because we love you and wanted better for you, but we expressed it in the worst possible way. Please come home. We can talk about this. We can figure it out. Your father is beside himself. He keeps saying he doesn't understand how his daughter became successful without him knowing. He's proud, Claire. We're all proud. Lily wants to apologize too. She said things she didn't mean because she was upset that you never visit, that you seem to want nothing to do with us. We miss you. We love you. Please don't let one stupid card destroy our family." "Mom," I read it twice, then handed it back to Natalie. "Are you going to respond?" she asked. "No. Claire, maybe they really are sorry. Maybe this could be a chance to. Jess, they didn't send that card because they were frustrated. They sent it because, deep down, that's how they really feel about me. The only thing that's changed is that they found out I have money. But what if they genuinely want to rebuild the relationship? Then they can do it without my money. If they want me in their lives, they can want me for who I am, not what I can provide." I never responded to my mother's letter, and I never heard from them again directly. But through mutual friends and social media, I kept track of what happened to them over the following months. My father had to sell his BMW and buy a used Toyota. The house payments became unmanageable on his actual salary, so they downsized to a modest apartment. My mother increased her hours at the boutique to full-time and eventually became assistant manager. Lily had to take out student loans to continue her PhD program. She also got additional work as a teaching assistant and moved to a shared apartment with roommates. The research program I'd funded was picked up by another donor, so she was able to continue her work, though with reduced funding. Their lifestyle changed dramatically, but they survived. They adapted. They learned to live within their actual means instead of the inflated lifestyle my money had provided. A year and a half later, I received a Facebook message from Lily. "Claire, I know you won't respond to this, but I wanted you to know that I understand now. Living on my actual income, working to pay for my own education, having to budget and save for everything, I get it now. I understand what real accomplishment feels like, and I understand what we took from you. I'm sorry. Not because we lost the money, but because we lost you. You deserved better from us. I hope wherever you are, you're happy. I hope you found people who appreciate you for who you are, not what you can give them. I miss my sister." That message broke my heart a little, but I still didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, are too damaged to rebuild. 2 years later, I received a final piece of information about my family through Natalie, who'd remained in contact with some of our mutual acquaintances. My parents had separated. Not divorced, but living apart. The financial stress and the revelation about my secret support had apparently created irreparable cracks in their relationship. They blamed each other for driving me away, for the birthday card, for not recognizing what I'd been doing for them. Lily had completed her PhD and gotten a job as a research psychologist. She'd paid for the last 2 years of her education herself and was apparently doing well professionally. My father had been promoted at work and was earning more money, though still nowhere near what he'd been accustomed to when I was supplementing his income. My mother had discovered she actually enjoyed working and was considering going back to school herself. They were all, by most measures, doing fine. Not luxuriously, but fine. They'd learned to live without money they'd never earned, and in many ways, they were probably more authentic versions of themselves now. As for me, TechFlow Solutions continued to grow. I relocated to Seattle and expanded into artificial intelligence consulting. I bought a house with a view of the water, adopted 2 rescue dogs, and built a life surrounded by people who valued me for who I was. I never married, but not because I was afraid of relationships. I learned the difference between love that comes with conditions and love that doesn't. I dated carefully, made friends slowly, and built chosen family with people who appreciated honesty over performance. 4 years after sending that final message, I received one last communication from my family. It came through a lawyer, which immediately put me on alert. The letter informed me that my father had been diagnosed with early-stage cancer. It was treatable, with an excellent prognosis, but the medical bills would be substantial. They were requesting financial assistance, and were prepared to sign legal documents acknowledging the money as a loan if necessary. I sat with that letter for weeks, wrestling with what it meant and how I felt about it. In the end, I had my own lawyer send a response. Ms. Russo has received your request for financial assistance. While she wishes your client well in his medical treatment, she cannot provide the requested funds. However, she has made a donation to the American Cancer Society in your client's name to support research for his condition. Ms. Russo continues to maintain no contact with her former family members and requests that this policy be respected during this difficult time. I donated $50,000 to cancer research in my father's name. Not because I owed it to him, but because cancer is terrible and research matters. It was money given to a cause, not to people who had hurt me. 8 months later, I learned through the same social networks that my father's treatment had been successful. The family had managed the medical bills through insurance, payment plans, and support from other relatives and friends. They'd figured it out without me, just like they'd figured out everything else. That was 5 years ago. But before I get to where I am today, there's more to this story that needs telling. The weeks and months that followed my final message, when the full scope of their desperation became clear and I had to confront exactly what kind of person my actions had revealed me to be. 3 weeks after I'd cut off their funding, Natalie came to my new apartment with a concerned expression I'd never seen before. "Claire, we need to talk. Your family situation is getting complicated." She sat down at my Kit Becker table and pulled out her phone, showing me screenshot after screenshot of social media posts, text message conversations, and even some emails that mutual friends had forwarded to her. "Your mom has been reaching out to everyone we know. She's telling people you've had some kind of mental breakdown and that you're making up stories about giving them money." I looked at the screenshots with growing disbelief. Marianne had posted on Facebook asking for prayers for her troubled daughter who has developed delusions about being wealthy and is now estranged from the family due to mental health issues. She'd commented on old photos of family gatherings, talking about how they were worried sick about my psychological episode. She's actually telling people I'm crazy? It gets worse. She started a narrative that you've been stealing money from them, and when they confronted you about it, you disappeared. She's claiming they've had to involve lawyers. My hands shook as I scrolled through the posts. Friends I'd known for years were commenting with sympathy for my poor parents and expressing concern about my mental state. Some were even offering to help find me so I could get the help I needed. "Claire, she's trying to destroy your reputation to cover up the truth about their financial situation." That night, I made a decision that went against every instinct I had. I created a detailed response that I posted on my own social media accounts, tagging everyone who had been commenting on my mother's posts. I need to address some false information that's been circulating about me. I am not mentally ill, I have not stolen money from anyone, and I am not missing or in need of help. What I am is the former owner of TechFlow Solutions, a consulting company that has worked with major corporations for the past 6 years. What I am is someone who discovered that providing for family members who openly despise you is not a sustainable path to happiness. For anyone who believes I owe explanations about my personal family situation, I don't. But for anyone who has been asked to help locate me or who has been told I'm suffering from delusions, please know that I am healthy, successful, and exactly where I choose to be. I will not be responding to further questions about this matter. I attached a single document to the post, a certificate showing TechFlow Solutions registration as a limited liability company, with my name listed as the sole owner, dated 6 years earlier. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Friends who had known me in college began commenting, remembering conversations about my business plans that they dismissed at the time. Former classmates who worked in tech confirmed they'd heard of my company and were shocked to learn I was the owner. But more importantly, the narrative my mother had tried to create crumbled instantly. Within hours, the sympathy comments on her posts turned into questions about why she'd misrepresented my situation. 2 days later, I received a phone call from my Uncle David, my father's brother, who I'd always had a decent relationship with despite the family drama. "Claire, I need to understand what's happening here. Your parents are saying one thing, you're saying another, and frankly, none of this makes sense." I spent 2 hours on the phone with Uncle David, explaining everything from the beginning. Unlike my immediate family, he listened without judgment and asked practical questions about timelines and financial details. "So you're telling me that Gregory's been living beyond his means for years because you've been supplementing his income, and he had no idea?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." And Marianne's been spending money she thought came from investments and contests, but it was actually from you? Yes. And Lily's education has been paid for by a scholarship program you created and funded yourself? The Russo Educational Foundation, yes. I have all the paperwork. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Claire, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Why didn't you just tell them? Why go through all this elaborate setup instead of just giving them money directly? It was a question I'd been avoiding asking myself, but Uncle David deserved an honest answer. Because they would never have accepted it from me. In their minds, I was the failure who couldn't get her life together. If I tried to give them money directly, they would have seen it as charity from someone beneath them, and their pride would have forced them to refuse it. But this way, they could accept it because they thought it came from sources that validated their sense of superiority. Exactly. Dad could brag about his consulting bonuses because they made him feel important at work. Mom could enjoy her winnings and returns because they made her feel lucky and smart. Lily could be proud of her merit scholarship because it confirmed her belief that she was academically exceptional. Jesus, Claire. Do you realize how manipulative that is? The word hit me like a physical blow. What? You've been controlling their entire financial reality for years without their knowledge or consent. You made them dependent on money they didn't know was your money, from a source they couldn't have anticipated losing. That's not generosity, Claire. That's manipulation. I hung up the phone and sat in my living room for hours, turning his words over in my mind. Was he right? Had my secret support system been an act of love or an act of control? The more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I became with my own motivations. I told myself I was being generous, but maybe what I'd really been doing was buying their tolerance of me while maintaining a sense of superiority over their ignorance. I'd felt good about their dependence on me because it gave me power over people who had made me feel powerless my entire life. When they criticized my life choices, I could internally roll my eyes and think about how they didn't even know they were living off my success. Uncle David was right. I had been manipulative. Not intentionally malicious, but manipulative nonetheless. That realization sent me into a weeks-long period of self-reflection that was honestly more painful than anything my family had put me through. I had to confront the possibility that while their cruelty was inexcusable, my response had been ethically questionable. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Evelyn Becker, who specialized in family trauma and financial abuse. I expected her to validate my actions and help me process my family's rejection. Instead, she challenged me in ways I hadn't anticipated. Claire, I want you to consider something. You've described your family as financially abusive toward you emotionally, but what would you call secretly controlling someone's financial stability without their knowledge? I was helping them. Were you? Or were you creating a situation where you had ultimate power over their financial security while they remained unaware of their vulnerability? I never threatened to take the money away. But you did take it away. And you did it specifically to cause them financial distress as punishment for their emotional cruelty toward you. These sessions were brutal, but necessary. Dr. Becker helped me understand that while my family's treatment of me was absolutely wrong, my response had created its own ethical problems. What you experienced from your family was emotional and psychological abuse, she explained. Their birthday card was cruel and unacceptable. But trauma doesn't justify creating additional trauma in response. So what was I supposed to do? Just keep taking their abuse forever? Of course not. But there were other options. You could have confronted them directly about their treatment of you. You could have set boundaries. You could have walked away without creating financial chaos in their lives. They wouldn't have listened. Maybe not. But that would have been their choice to make with full information about the consequences. I spent months working through these realizations with Dr. Becker. The hardest part was accepting that both things could be true simultaneously. My family had treated me terribly, and I had responded in a way that was also harmful. During this period, I learned more about what was happening with my family through extended relatives who were trying to play peacekeeper. My Aunt Caroline, Marianne's sister, called me about 4 months after the financial cutoff. Claire, I'm not calling to take sides, but I want you to know what's happening with your parents. I'm not sure I want to know. Your father is seeing a therapist. He's been struggling with the realization that he never really knew his own daughter, and that his lifestyle was built on money he didn't earn. He's been having what Caroline called an identity crisis. That stopped me short. I hadn't considered that learning about my secret support might affect him beyond just the financial inconvenience. He keeps saying he doesn't know who he is anymore, Caroline continued. His sense of being a successful provider was completely tied to a lifestyle that wasn't actually sustainable on his income. What about Mom? Marianne is. Well, she's angry. But not just at you. She's angry at herself for not knowing her own daughter was successful. She's angry at the situation. But Claire, she's also started working, and I think it's actually been good for her. She's discovering she's capable of more than she thought. And Lily? Lily is the one who's handling this best, honestly. She's thrown herself into her studies and her work. She told me she's learned more about herself in the past few months than she did in years of graduate school. These updates created a complex mix of emotions I wasn't prepared for. I felt guilty about the pain I'd caused, but also frustrated that it had taken financial consequences for them to begin any kind of self-reflection. 6 months after my financial cutoff, I made a decision that surprised even me. I sent my Uncle David a message asking if he would be willing to serve as an intermediary for a family meeting. I'm not ready to have direct contact with them, I explained. But I think we all need some closure on this situation, and I have things I need to say that they need to hear. The meeting was arranged for a neutral location, a conference room at Uncle David's office on a Saturday when the building was mostly empty. I arrived early and set up my laptop with a presentation I'd prepared. When my family walked in, I barely recognized them. My father looked older, more tired, but somehow more grounded than I'd ever seen him. My mother appeared smaller somehow, less artificially polished. Lily looked the most unchanged, but there was something in her expression that seemed more serious, more mature. We sat around the conference table like we were conducting a business meeting, which in many ways, we were. I asked Uncle David to arrange this meeting because I have things I need to say, and I assume you do too, I began. But I want to establish some ground rules first. This is not about reconciliation. This is about understanding and closure. My father spoke first. Claire, we owe you an apology that goes far beyond what we can express. That birthday card was cruel and inexcusable, and we've regretted it every day since you left. The card wasn't the problem, Dad. The card was just the first time you were honest about how you really feel about me. That's not true. Let me finish. I opened my laptop and projected a timeline onto the wall. I want to show you something. For the next hour, I walked them through a detailed analysis of our family relationship over the past decade. Every criticism they'd made of my life choices, every time they'd expressed disappointment in my decisions, every family gathering where they'd introduced me as their troubled daughter who was still figuring things out. This isn't about the money, I explained. The money was just my misguided attempt to buy your approval. This is about the fact that you never saw me as valuable unless I was providing something you wanted. I showed them email exchanges where they'd only contacted me when they needed favors. Text message threads where they'd ignored my attempts at normal conversation but responded immediately when I offered to help with something. Claire, my mother said quietly, we didn't realize. That's exactly the problem, Mom. You didn't realize because you never paid attention to me as a person. You only paid attention to what I could or couldn't do for your image of what our family should look like. Lily, who had been silent through most of the presentation, finally spoke up. You're right, she said. And I'm sorry. Not just for the card, but for years of treating you like you were less than us when you were actually this. She gestured at the presentation materials. How did we not know who you really were? Because you never asked. In 6 years of building this company, not one of you ever asked me about my work beyond dismissing it as computer stuff. Not one of you ever asked about my goals, my achievements, my challenges. You decided I was a failure and then only saw evidence that supported that conclusion. The conversation that followed was difficult but necessary. We talked about the birthday card, about the years of emotional neglect that preceded it, about my decision to provide financial support without their knowledge, and about the ethical implications of my response to their cruelty. By the end of the meeting, we'd reached an understanding that was painful but honest. We were not a functional family, and we probably never had been. They acknowledged their treatment of me had been harmful, and I acknowledged that my secret financial manipulation had been wrong, regardless of my intentions. Where does this leave us? My father asked as we were packing up. It leaves us with the truth, I said. And the truth is that we don't know how to love each other in healthy ways. Maybe that can change someday, but it won't change quickly, and it won't change without significant work from all of us. We agreed that contact would remain minimal while everyone focused on building healthier versions of themselves. It wasn't the dramatic reconciliation that movies would suggest, but it was honest, and honesty felt more valuable than false peace. Today, I'm 33 years old. I run a successful company, live in a beautiful home, and have built meaningful relationships with people who love me unconditionally. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd responded differently to that birthday card. If I'd confronted them directly, if I told them about the money while demanding respect rather than disappearing entirely. But I don't regret my choice. That card wasn't a moment of anger, it was a revelation of their true feelings about me. They didn't want a daughter, they wanted a success story they could brag about. When they thought I wasn't that, they preferred I didn't exist. The money was never really the point. The point was that I spent 28 years trying to earn love from people who weren't capable of giving it freely. I spent 6 additional years trying to buy approval from people who had already decided I was worthless. The birthday card that told me I was the biggest mistake they ever made became the catalyst for the best decision I ever made, choosing myself over their conditional love. Sometimes the greatest gift a family can give you is showing you exactly who they are, so you can decide whether that's who you want in your life. My family gave me that gift wrapped in cruelty, but it was a gift nonetheless. I've never sent them another penny, and I never will. But I also don't hate them anymore. They are who they are, and I am who I am, and those two things were never compatible. The biggest mistake wasn't me being born. The biggest mistake was all of us pretending we were a loving family when we were really just people who shared DNA but not values. Now I have a real family, chosen, built on mutual respect and genuine affection. We don't need shared genetics to share love. And that's worth more than any amount of money I ever gave away.